as I think one of the premier organizations working towards early childhood care and education, bringing in people interested who are working for the same cause. It started in New Delhi in Lady Irwin College, Department of Child Development, in the presence of our first Prime Minister, Mr. Shri Jawaharlal Nehru. IAPE, as it was called, aimed to empower concerned adults through professional development programs, through refresher courses and annual conferences. We wish to contribute towards the development of children of our country in this manner. IAPE was supported by NCRT, by government functionaries, by eminent educationists, and we were invited to be on various committees related to early childhood education, child welfare, ICDS, Anganwadis and Balwadis. In fact, we were part of Maharashtra government's Professor Ram Joshi's committee to review preschool education in the state, and also with the BMC for training teachers for their new English medium schools. In the year 2008, IEP was dissolved and we evolved and we got into a new avatar, that is the AECED, and we are registered under the Societies Registration Act. We're strong crusaders for early childhood education. We follow a rights-based approach, and we want to involve each and every stakeholder, be it a teacher, be it a parent, to be understanding about the needs of children in the early years and to provide a holistic development in the 21st century. So not only parents and teachers, but we work with government functionaries. At the state level, we have provided recommendations to regulate ECCE centers in Maharashtra in 2012. And we were part of the committee that formed regulatory guidelines for creche and daycare services in Maharashtra in the year 2017. And recently, we were part of the nationwide group that gave feedback on the draft NEP. We have stalwarts and we're so proud of the people who've been associated with the AECD. Shri Ganga Sharan Sinha, the patron and Rajya Sabha member, also known as Ganga Babu to IAP Delhi. Our patron was also Srimati Mrinalini Sarabhai. We had Dr. Ananda Lakshmi, we had Mrs. Veena Swaminathan from Chennai, we had Professor Veena Mistry from Baroda, we have Ms. Nalini Chugani, Mumbai, a guiding light for all of us, and Ms. Reni Tharapur from Pune. So we have stalwarts who work so relentlessly for the cause of early years, and we have all of them with us at AECD. Our national office is at Tata Institute of Social Sciences, and the main task that we try to achieve is advocacy on national policies. We conduct seminars, we conduct annual conferences, we conduct webinars for parents, we do a lot of teacher resources, and we acknowledge good practices and practitioners, and that is why we have this spotlight webinar today. We work with similar organizations who have the same goals, who work again relentlessly for the early childhood education to be stabilized in our country. And also we focus on opening new branches across the country. The branches carry out all these activities. They also do a lot of consultancy. We have refresher courses, we network. There is a lot of professional development activities. We work with parents. Then again, advocacy is very important. Information dissemination is another important activity which our branches carry out. E-newsletter comes in, 2 e-newsletters every year, and it is sent to all the members. And we invite contributors to share good practices that have evolved in their school. This is done by the Mumbai branch. And this is another interesting outreach program for parents where AECD associated with Bal Mandir Research Foundation and came up with this calendar and also with this very informative booklet on joy of parenting. Our webinars for this year, we have been having, this is the second spotlight webinar that we've been having. We're also highlighting the exemplary practices of the organizations across our country through these spotlight webinars. And something important is the nurturing care framework on whole child approach and the webinar on climate change in EECD, which will be coming in soon. And at the Mumbai branch, we organize workshops in Hindi with NGOs. We've also planning to do workshops on learning strategies, on SEL, developing play corners, and there are lots of topics that we've decided, and we are all ready to do it with the general public and for people working in the field. So we request and we offer our invitation to each and every one of you to join us. You could be taking up various types of membership depending upon your organization. If you're a student, you could probably take up a 1-year, 3-year, or a 5-year, or if you are a working professional, the same thing as an institution you can take up, or as an individual you can take up. So we have these memberships, and membership forms are available on our website. You can download it from there. If you wish to contact us, this is our details. You could take a screenshot of this or a picture, and we would be very glad to help you. You could contact Ms. Purnima Contractor or Ms. Grishma Patil for the same. So that is about AECD as an organization. We have a lot of pride and a lot of joy in talking about the work that we do. This is a group of individuals who've come in together and work for the cause of early childhood education. A little bit of a brief about the spotlight webinars that we have organized. As we celebrate the country's 75th Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, we thought at AECD we should also step up and join hands and bring people together in the field of early childhood education, and also bring in the feeling of positivity and productivity, and move towards a radiant India 100, from 75 to India 100. And to commemorate this milestone, we wish to celebrate, we wish to showcase the work of admirable work of organizations who've been working from diverse settings, be it a Balwadi, be it from a slum, or be it a city school, be it a private school or a government organization. We want to bring this exemplar services to each and every one of you. And that's why we've organized these spotlight webinars. The implementation of NEP 2020 is also another important aspect that everybody is looking forward to, and also excellence in the field of early childhood education. So in this context, we thought that we must showcase the work done by Redbricks International School, Ahmedabad, and who better than Ms. Renita Handa, with whom we are going to have a very interesting conversation today. But before I start the conversation, I would like to introduce Ms. Renita Handa. Good evening, Renita. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation and being with us here today. I take great pleasure in introducing Ms. Renita. Ms. Renita is a young, enthusiastic educationist. She's not only a social entrepreneur, but she's also an educational entrepreneur who's been super passionate about changing the world through the power of education. She holds a master's degree in education from Harvard University and has more than 13 plus years in the field of education. She's a very, very strong advocate of child-centric, holistic, and developmentally appropriate education for young children. A young person, we're so happy to have her here today. She's a founder of Redbricks International, and she's worked so extensively envisioning and developing a unique curriculum from pre-K to pre-kindergarten to class 12 school system. And one thing very interesting is her school focuses a lot on the ability to help children take sound decisions. So decision making is one thing that they're really working hard. And she's passionate about equipping teachers and parents, change and develop important mindsets so that we can create a better society, better children. Thank you, Renita. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We are we are extremely happy to have you with us. My first question to you, knowing you've been talking to you for some time now, I wanted to ask you, starting a school is not a simple task. What inspired you to start the school at such a young age?
Yeah, the most interesting but the most difficult question. And the first thing that you talked about, the challenge, now that I think about the initial years, I feel it was an extremely challenging task. I had sleepless nights, many sleepless nights. But now that I look back, I feel like being young was my advantage and was my superpower. Because I think being in your 20s, when you foray into something as an entrepreneur, you are extremely hopeful, you're extremely optimistic. And what we set out to do was very different, to start a progressive school and change society's mindsets was extremely difficult. And I feel like being young actually helped me through those challenging times and to navigate through all the resistance and the issues that we faced at that time. But before I also answer your question fully, let me also say that and acknowledge that me and my husband, we started the school together. So we kind of co-founders. We had this shared dreams and shared vision for the school, which has kind of molded the school. If I talk about my inspirations, I would say two big ones. I think one is a more personal one. Right after college, I got this opportunity to design and implement an after-school life skills development program for children. And I had been a product of an extremely traditional school system where I had never heard of life skills. So it kind of changed my mindset 180 degree, and I realized how education should be holistic, and education should actually equip children for life success and real career success. But what I found working with that program was, while we were working with children, we were really not able to have a very deep impact because they were spending most of their hours in school and at home. So I think it was at that time that this thought started taking shape, that if we really want to impact children fully, then we really need to have a school system which kind of builds this kind of an holistic educational framework and delivers it to them. And the other, I would just say that, when you're young, you start thinking like, what is the best career for you? And one of the parameters for me and my husband was we wanted to do something that has a positive impact on the society. And we asked people, like, what does our country need in the future? In 2009, India was really booming, growing. And the answers you would get is roads, bridges, physical infrastructure. But then, we realized that social infrastructure is extremely important. And that's why the name Redbricks, we kind of felt that we want to build the social infrastructure of the country brick by brick, which is by really developing future thought leaders of tomorrow.
That's fantastic, because I think that's something important. We were also wondering why Redbricks, and looking at developing a social structure. I think the vision was fantastic. The other thing I wanted to ask you was, being so rooted in Indian values, in the culture, Indian culture, that seems to be the bedrock of your organization, of your school. And you want to bring back the lost glory of Indian education. And also you want to kind of adopt the triple S, that is what that I saw, Shiksha, Sadhana, and Swara, as the cardinal principles of your organization. Yeah. So now all this was way before the NEP 2020 with, you are so passionate about the Indian ethos development and all that. So like, can you tell us about that? And can you tell us, based on the mission and the vision of your school, your beliefs, and also how you have integrated the NEP, or you plan to integrate the NEP into the current curriculum of your school? Can you just tell us about that?
Yeah. Sure, that's a very interesting question. So as I said, when we were starting out there, one of the things that we wanted to do was really change the way children were learning. And we realized that a lot of these theories and practices that we were looking at came from the West, right? Whether you look at constructivism, multiple intelligences, experiential learning, most of that was coming from the West, which was great. I mean, it gave us amazing tools and frameworks to rely upon. But we realized that we are in India and we need to contextualize all of this in our culture and our context. So we really wanted to be very mindful about that. At the same time, as I said, we were a product of the traditional Indian education system, and we felt that everything was not wrong. There were many things that worked. We did a lot of rote learning, which in a way was not good for lifelong learning. But I feel it helped us develop certain character traits, right? Like the ability to focus, the ability to be disciplined, work hard. And we're like, no wonder India has the best engineers in the world, right? So what if we marry the two, right? If we look at the West and its emphasis on conceptual learning, the ability to think and apply, and we preserve the really Indian ethos of, practice, discipline, and we marry the two, then we kind of achieve the best of both worlds. And we looked at a lot of the Indian thinkers like Gandhi, Aurobindo, Tagore, Krishnamurti, and all of them kind of, I feel, say very simple and common things. And I would say two main things, which the NEP also talks about now, is like education should actually focus on the person as a whole. And kind of, it's really not just to be able to crack exams or succeed in colleges. It's actually to evolve and develop an individual from within. And for that to happen, I think as a school, we realized it was important to adopt a lot of reflective practices at the teachers level, at the children's level. So I think a lot of the practices that we do inculcate, self-awareness, reflective thinking, mindfulness, which in a way, again, sounds all Western, but I think at the heart, it's really the Indian ethos that we're trying to bring out. One more thing I would like to say, I feel like all of us want to marry the Indian and the Western, but in many of our schools, what happens is that the Indian takes the shape of rituals, right? So let's have these prayers in our assembly, let's do these cultural celebrations, which is all great. And I think it's important to do that so that children have this exposure to Indian heritage. But I feel like anything in education, the Indian ethos can be only successful if it's integrated in the whole school program. So we very carefully, I think, when we've developed our curriculum, to the teaching methods, to the school environment, we've tried to, inculcate and integrate it in all the aspects. So I will give very simple couple of examples. Like one example being that despite being an English medium school, we said children need to learn Hindi and Gujarati because that's the mother tongue here, songs and stories, and also other languages as much as we can bring in through the diverse parent and teaching community that we also have here. So, stories, songs, so parents would come and ask us कि क्यों गुजराती में सीख रहे हैं, क्यों हिंदी में सीख रहे हैं, यहाँ पे तो हम English सीखने के लिए भेजते हैं. But all of that, you have to understand that it's not this or that. The child has to experience all kinds of traditions and heritage. So things like that, I think. And the other thing I would say is the other problem in adopting Western theories and approaches sometimes is that the whole focus on children should be enjoying their learning, which is great. Yes, children should enjoy learning. But sometimes in the whole quest of giving them a lot of freedom so that they can think, they can enjoy the learning process, I think sometimes we compromise on the discipline aspect, the rigor aspect, the hard work aspect, and also discipline in form of respectful relationships. So I once visited an international school where I saw the children were not wishing their teacher. And I was like, no, it's important to wish a teacher. It's important to stand up straight when she's passing by and show some sort of respect. So I guess I feel it is these small things that matter. But I feel the role modeling has to happen. I feel right from the school management to the teachers, to the parents, we all need to role model it for children to be able to really live and understand the Indian ethos.
Thank you so much. It's like even we do the same thing in our colleges where the first day, the first thing that is told to students is to give respect to the teacher. And as you spoke, one of the things that I felt was this is what we teach in a typical teacher education course where the integration of the theories and, it's so picture perfect from what you are saying. Like yours is a very unique educational institution, and you seem to be amalgamating different practices, different methodologies, different thoughts. So you spoke about multiple intelligences. I have been also looking at your website and following you on Instagram. So, the project method that you're so fond of. So there is so much of, a beautiful amalgamation of various philosophies. So the best things, Western, Indian, you've brought them all together. So can you choose one practice, anything, one? And do you want to elaborate that as one of the best practices in your school? Can you do that for us?
Sure. Like you rightly said, I think my heart lies in the project approach. So I've chosen that as a practice to be spotlighted. So may I share my screen now to show it to the audience? Thank you. I hope you can see my presentation.
Yes, we can see your presentation.
Okay, perfect. So to answer the first part of your question, when there are so many theories and approaches, how do you distill everything and how do you create your own guiding compass in terms of your educational program? So I think at one point we also felt the same. We felt that we were getting lost in all this theoretical clutter. So what we did was we came up with this list of 8 principles or educational beliefs that guide our program right from pre-K to grade 12. Very simple things, but you'll see a lot of, all your Vygotsky, Piaget, Gardner, everything kind of getting combined here. So the first five, I feel relate more to how children learn best. I think we strongly believe that each child has a unique potential. We believe that every child learns differently, and therefore the value of using different ways of teaching and learning in the classroom. Then, we've all experienced that real learning, whatever we've really understood well in our life, has come through practical experiences. So it's very important that education also focuses on bringing practical experiences into the classroom. Here's where I think Vygotsky becomes very important. The whole concept of social learning, that learning actually happens through interactions. It does not happen in isolation. And children need to interact with a variety of people to learn, not just their teacher, but also the peers, also external experts. The other thing we kind of really figured out and have invested in is teachers and their competencies. I feel if we had to choose one key factor which can make or break education, it's the quality of the teacher. And therefore, I believe it's extremely important to invest in our teachers and to attract talented individuals into the profession and to retain them into the profession. The last three was something which relates to what we feel are the purposes of education, right? Which the NEP also talks about very beautifully now. Like, are we really preparing children, as I may be repeating myself, for college success, or are we really preparing them for career and life success? So if we are preparing them for life success, then holistic development becomes extremely important. Their ability to think in complex ways becomes important. And I think in today's world, all of us know and believe and experience that adapting constantly is the key. The pandemic also made us realize that. So I think as an education institution, it's very important that we don't just teach children, but we actually help them acquire lifelong learning skills. And, to answer the first part of your question, I thought that these 8 beliefs kind of summarize the whole thing very well, that we could use all these jargons, but at the end of the day, these are some common sense beliefs and principles that we adopt in our school system. Talking more specifically about early childhood, I would say there are these 4 key principles and components that have formed the base and foundation for what we are doing. And I feel the first is like the most important and the most difficult. How do you have a developmentally appropriate curriculum for young children in a society which actually values competition, which actually values preparing children for the next stage academically? So it's a struggle where you have to kind of, as a preschool, figure out like what is age appropriate and what should children at these ages learn and how should they learn. And let's look at science, let's look at research, and let's look at the experience of a lot of these experts, or many of whom I feel are a part of the AECD community, and learn from that and bring it to our classrooms. So we've really crafted a very age appropriate curriculum, and we stick to that. I'm proud of the fact that they've not fallen prey to the pressures of the society there. Obviously, we've been practical. We've adapted where we needed to, but we've really stuck to that core principle. I already talked about holistic development. I think the entire early childhood program has to be and should focus on all the 5 domains, which is cognitive, language, physical, socio-emotional, and creative. As I already mentioned, learning should happen through a more play and inquiry-based manner. And I will really talk about the importance of an enabling environment, because sometimes you can get the right curriculum, sometimes you can train your teachers well, but if the socio-emotional environment is not healthy enough, then your teachers are not motivated and your children are not learning right. So I feel we've invested a lot in building a very, I would say, inspiring and a community-based environment. And the physical environment, obviously, because young children are visual learners. So a lot of attention goes into how we present the physical environment to them. So this was a little about the broad aspects about our work. But as you rightly said, to kind of spotlight into one practice, I've chosen the project method, which we've kind of over the last 10, 12 years, we've done it over and over again, and every time we do it, we just love it. So just to give credit before I get into the method, it's not something that we've discovered. I think we've drawn inspirations from other places. So people may like to read this book. There's a website, the link can be seen here. This is a model developed by Lillian Katz and Sylvia Shard, who like early childhood practitioners, and they've developed a beautiful framework for using project-based learning in early childhood classrooms. So we've learned a lot from their work. And a lot of the practitioners may have heard about the Reggio Emilia preschools in Italy, and they follow a lot of these project-based learning methods. So what we're doing is also drawing a lot of inspirations from the work of the Reggio preschools in Italy. So just to give everyone a quick glimpse about what it means, and then I will show an example of a project we've actually done in our school for more clarity. The project approach is basically starts with the first belief that young children are competent. And we have to shift our image of young children who are these empty vessels who need to be filled with information, with young children who have a lot of curiosity and insights about the world and who are extremely motivated to learn about the world around them. The entire methodology of project approach is actually research. Imagine young children as young as 2 years to 2 to 6 years of age becoming investigators. And if we really put the power of learning in their hands, we say, you go and find out what you want to learn about. And we as adults are here to support you in the entire process. That's how project-based learning happens. And the beauty of project approach is that while it has this very strong structure, and that's important for educators because the structure helps you to design and implement it well, it's also extremely flexible, meaning teachers really build on children's interests, and projects can take different directions based on what a particular group of children are interested in. Typically, a project basically has, 3 phases. But what we've done is a very beautiful combination of design thinking and project-based learning. So we've broken it up into 6 stages. The first step being where, in the first step, the teachers don't give any information to children. They are just trying to understand the prior knowledge of children and to really generate curiosity so that they can become excited about what's going to come for them. In the next stage is where children become the researchers, where, children actually undertake a lot of first-hand investigations, which you will see in a while, interviewing others, surveying, doing online research with teachers' assistants, looking through books for research. They actually become researchers themselves to acquire new knowledge and skills. And then the next 3 steps is where the design thinking element really comes in. So every project has an end challenge, and the end challenge is usually for the kids and the teacher to come up with a model. And now, again, the model is not here to impress the parents. The model could be anything. It could be but it has to come from their imagination, from their thought, and it has to be a collective effort of the children as a whole. So they start by visualizing what they want to create. Then they actually prototype, like small designers. They actually prototype how will it look like. Then they actually create the final version based on the learnings of the prototyping stage. And then I feel, again, the last stage becomes extremely important, where they come together and reflect on the entire journey of the project. And then they prepare to share it with an external audience, which usually includes their parents. So giving an example of such a project, which was done using this method. So we basically, children have about 10, if they have about 10 working months in a year, let's say about 4 or 5 months, they are doing the project method. So we do about 3 projects in a year. Each project is about 5-6 weeks. And it's important for the projects to have this long duration so that they can go in depth. So this was a project we done in 2017 under the whole theme of art immersion and how can we use art as a tool of inquiry and learning. And as I said, we had these youngest children, the playgroup ones to the senior KG children doing the project on different topics, colors, textures, paper, and weaving. And here I will kind of spotlight and go deeper more into the senior KG project, which was on weaving. So before teachers start any project, I think it's very important that they are well prepared. So before starting this project, teachers themselves actually underwent a whole weaving craft workshop. They learned from artisans. And the most important thing is where they come together and create this whole collective web where they brainstorm all kinds of information on weaving, but not just information. They also brainstorm on how they can connect math, language, different concepts of their curriculum with the project. And they also brainstorm experiences that children can have, especially for field work, like the field trip places, visiting experts that could be invited, etc. So I think this serves as like a blueprint for the teachers before they start the project. The first stage of the weaving project, as I said, is just really not giving new information to children, but probing and eliciting from them what is their prior knowledge about the topic. So for example, you see here some anecdotes of children, what they would have said. I hope it's readable. You would see children are exploring actual objects in the classroom. So teachers carefully prepare the indoor environment, and then there's a lot of time given for indoor free play. And then they keenly observe what are children doing? How are they exploring these objects? While they are doing that, what questions are going on in their heads, or what questions are they asking? Then teachers actually give them some small activities where they can actually experiment with that topic. So here they are weaving using paper plates. And most importantly, they have a lot of discussions. The teachers ask them questions, direct questions about the topic, and children share from their past experiences and so on. Teachers understand a lot of the myths and the misconceptions that children have at this stage. And secondly, teachers understand what are this group of children interested in, and therefore, how can it define the further journey of my project? So then comes the next stage, which is the researching. So if you look at this is like the first part of researching, where a lot of in-class experimentation happens. So before children go for external fieldwork, a lot of fieldwork happens in school. So again, you see a basket weaver here. Again, the Indian ethos, right? We really make sure that we call Indian artisans also into the program. So there is an basket weaver, giving them an experience of how baskets are weaved, to another artist who came and did some weaving experiences in the class. But it's not just experiencing, they are asking questions, she's giving them answers, she's building on their knowledge. And then children would have learned new techniques. So you see some evidences of some weaving techniques that children may have learned in the process. And you see most of this is using indigenous materials, because projects are resource heavy. So we try and collect a lot of materials from the parents also, and then we try and reuse them in our classrooms. The second part of research is that they've acquired some basic information. Now they go out of the school. So they go out for external field work. So as a part of this project, they actually went to NID. So we are lucky to have a beautiful institution in Ahmedabad, the NID. So they actually went to their weaving workshop, and you see that here they are actually learning weaving. They're trying their hands at weaving with the artisans. But here I would again say that this is different from a regular field trip. Because it's field work, there is a lot of pre-field work, pre-field trip discussion and planning that happens by the children. And then they go to the field site. So before they would have gone, they would have discussed in the classroom where they are going. They would have themselves planned who will they meet, what will they see, what will they carry with them. So a lot of thinking and planning of why are we going to this place, and what information are we going to find out, and how are we going to find out, and how are we going to record that information again. They do telemarks, they do measurements, they do etching. So, because young children have these multiple ways of processing and representing. So here you see these two kids are doing a representational drawing, which I think is at the heart of this. Representational drawing is actually like young scientists. They are observing a process and they are trying to draw the exact process that they are observing. These two girls are actually counting. So a lot of the math is happening here. and so on. So what I'm trying to say is teachers also intentionally make sure that a lot of curricular goals are covered through these activities. So these are, again, those drawings that I was showing you. These are how they look like. They make these beautiful drawings which showcase what they have absorbed at the field site. After they come back, again, they revisit the entire field trip. They see the pictures of the field trip again. They look at their drawings. They look at their data. And, like any good researcher, they start analyzing the data. And they start making sense of what they found out from the field site. But here, what you see are some of the questions they had asked there. So someone would have asked, let's say, "Uncle, where did you learn to make this? If you don't make it with a machine, then can you make it with your hands as well?" So there are different questions that children would have asked. After they come back, teachers give them opportunities of free drawing, free clay modeling, creating their own stories, their own rhymes, their own riddles, but it is based on the experiences. So what you see is their ideas, what they have learned, but represented in these different creative forms of representation. Then after this researching, I feel the researching is where the maximum time goes. That's when they start thinking about their final challenge. That's when they start thinking about their product, which is the visualizing stage. Now here, the beautiful thing about this is that they have to negotiate as young children. They have to come to a common decision as a group as to what are they going to make. So a lot of debates happen. We'll make this, and then they in fact do voting. They create these pictographs where they vote, and then they see what the majority says, and finally they come up with some ideas. So as a part of this project, there were 4 groups. They decided to make a cot, a basket, a carpet, and a woven wheel. And after they've kind of decided what they're going to make, now is the time to become these designers and start putting it into practice. So that's when they start prototyping. Now, beautifully, again, prototyping has 2 parts. The first is where the children are thinking individually. So teachers ask them to create their own individual blueprints. So if you want to create a cot, how will your cot look like? So you see some drawings which are actually showing that. These are 2 cot blueprints. This is a basket blueprint. So children start drawing from their head of what will it look like, what materials will it have, etc., etc. And once they do the blueprints, then the teachers ask them to create their own prototypes. So they are given clay. And here you see the prototype of a basket, the prototype of a carpet, and they start really putting it together in a 3D form. But that's not enough, right? Because they have to create one model as a group. So once they have these individual ideas, they come together as a group, and then they start creating a group prototype, a group blueprint, like an architect team, right? They come together and envision a whole building together. And that's what they are doing here. Once they do that, they start creating a group prototype. So that's slightly bigger than the clay model. And here is where a lot of details come in regarding the materials they will use, the techniques they will use. And you see all the prototypes being made here, the carpet, the cot, etc. What happens during this stage is a lot of challenges, right? Like they had challenges about the cot ko khada kaise rakhenge, wheel ऐसे हमने बना तो दिया पर फिर wheel को display कैसे करेंगे. So a lot of the challenges come in, which again is important in project approach because we want them to think of these challenges and think of the solutions. So children themselves start thinking, like here the child is saying that we have to use if you use a thicker ribbon, then we'll be able to complete it fast. Right? If we, this straw is not working, but if we use it this way, then it will work. So that's a lot of problem solving happens here. What you see here in the pictures is now they are trying to visualize their big model, which is like entering into the creating stage. Now here again, we encourage them to create life-size models. Why? Because when you create life-size models, it's, you have to use a lot of math and thinking, STEM thinking there. So here the child is actually using her foot span they are all trying to, as a group, decide the size of their carpets. They're using foot span and different objects to measure. Here they are deciding the size of that cot using tables and measuring tape and so on. So again, it's still building on the model, but now imagining a bigger model. And what you see here is the children actually working in small groups, creating all of these by themselves. But they are young children. Everything they cannot do by themselves. So that is also discussed with them. Where do you need adult help? Where do the teachers need to step in? Where do external experts need to step in? So we actually had to call a carpenter to help them put the cot together. We had to call an electrician to kind of weld certain things about the circular model together. So it's okay to ask for adult help, but you need to know where, and you need to know how to seek for adult help. And yeah, I think this is just showing the boy counting and again some of the anecdotes. So what I think we still have 2 more stages before I can show a video related to this. So as I said, once they create the model, it's not kaam ho gaya, sab khatam. I think then is the most important stage where you said over the last 4 or 5 weeks, you did this beautiful journey as researchers. What did you learn? How did you start? Where did you reach? And this is where collective reflection happens. So they come together as a group and discuss that the challenges they faced, the myths that they had, how they got cleared, what they liked and disliked from the projects. I recently read one child said, what I disliked was I didn't like going in the bus on a field trip. And who would have said, like, this is how you would have thought children think like this, right? But things like, expressing their feelings, really reflecting back on the journey as learners is extremely important life skill for them. What they also do then is they plan for the exhibition. So as I said, it always ends in an exhibition where they share usually we share it with the parents, so it's in their classroom. But once a year, we do it externally in an art gallery. But whatever it is, small scale or large scale, they have to plan. So we have sessions to plan that. We ask children, who will you invite for the exhibition? Can we write invitation letters for them? What will you want to show them? Because we cannot show everything. We have limited display space. So children make decisions about what to select, how to put everything. And I think that again is a very beautiful process of reflective thinking and decision making for them. So you see some of the end of the project drawings here where the children have drawn the process, the feelings, some rhymes, riddles, and stories. And these were the beautiful products that those 4 groups created. So imagine where they started and where they reached and what enriching journey they had. These were the protagonists. These were all the children and the teachers who actually conducted these projects. This was the exhibition that I'm talking about. So we do this once a year. And I want to point out that why we do this exhibition. I think one important thing is for the children to feel proud. When they see their work in this art gallery, when they enter, you should look at their faces. They feel so proud of what they've done. But more importantly, I think as an educational institution for us, it's a way of advocacy. Advocating for quality early childhood education. And this whole developmentally appropriate, holistic, why does it matter? Unless parents don't see the whole value of it, they won't realize it. So you see parents here, they're looking at a lot of technical information here. So this chart is showing how stages of scribbling happens, how stages of writing happens. The panels on the right are talking about socio-emotional learning, what socio-emotional learning is about. But if you see, there will be a poster which is theoretical, but then everything else is children's work. All of this is children's work. So they see it in the context of children's work. Most importantly, they get relieved कि मेरा नर्सरी का बच्चा सीनियर केजी में आके ये करने लगेगा, मुझे पहले से उसको पुश नहीं करना है. So they see how learning and development proceeds in a very stage-wise fashion also. This is a video, so I think maybe it's a short 3-minute video. It's covering the weaving project that I just talked about. So I will quickly put that on. I hope the audience can make the connections between all the stages that I talked about, and you will see that in a sequence here in the video.
Yes. Keep here. You have done this? Yes.
मोड़ना पड़ेगा उसको, जैसे बनता जाएगा ऐसे वो मोड़ेंगे. दबाना है। थोड़ा ताकत करके उसको दबाना है।
Nihit, are you listening? Aditi, go from the corner. How many? 19.
Come.
Yashi, come here. Sit.
So I'll just wrap up with these one or two slides, this part of the presentation. I want to say that while we do all this, again, I want to say children enjoyed, children learned, but they learned, developed holistically. And that's what is important. If you look at physical development, their gross motor, fine motor skills, ability to take risks, self-reliance, everything develops through the projects. If you look at cognitive development, their inquiry, curiosity, thinking, research, mathematical skills developed through the projects. If you look at language development, they would have developed such enriching vocabulary. They would have developed amazing receptive and expressive skills, and especially also reading, writing, and pre-reading writing skills when they do the projects. Obviously, because this was an art topic, a lot of creative development happened, but otherwise also they kind of developed their creative thinking and artistic skills beautifully. And most importantly, I think socio-emotional development. There was so much emphasis on self-awareness, reflection, working with others, taking responsibility, not giving up. I think all of that becomes very important foundational traits that we develop in young children. I think now we'll put in some links in the chat for the audience. So over the years, at Redbricks, we've done so many projects. We've documented them thanks to the teachers. They've done beautiful documentations, and we've created many publications. So there is a Google Drive link from which you can access the publications. If you go to the Redbricks YouTube channel, there are loads of videos where you see similar project journeys, the one that I showed you, many other videos on different topics. And I definitely want to mention this, like during the pandemic, when we had 2 years of remote learning, the second year we decided to do the project approach virtually, like remotely. And parents became our partners because a lot of effort went at home from the parents, but still we could conduct these projects to great success. And these three websites are actually virtual exhibition websites. So our teachers put in about 6 months of time to put the websites together. But the idea was to showcase the entire project journey and outcomes for an audience virtually. So I would love if people can also visit the websites.
Thank you, Renita. Thank you so much. It was like, wow, what kind of work the children have done. And, the words that were coming to my mind, which we always talk in our classes, hands-on, exploratory learning, experiential learning, and, everything is happening in the school. And I think that's really fantastic. When you started the presentation, even I was thinking design thinking. Now, how would these kids do whatever, the design thinking appeared to be a very big word at that point. But I think by the time you finished the presentation, we knew what actually was happening in the school. And what was so wonderful is that when you talk about project method, it has the questions must come from the children. That's what is usually said. But a lot of schools do projects where it's the teacher's idea and then it is done with the children. Though of course children learn a lot, there is a lot of experiential learning and all that. But the thing is, I really like the way that you said that children deliberate, they bring in the topic, and then also how it goes from an individual project to a group project. It has to be a group of activity, and I think that is something. Of course, making the prototype and all that is such brilliant ideas, because I think later in life, when they grow, when they go to higher classes, also they will understand how a prototype is very important for development of something really very big. And what's interesting is, how do you manage this 4 to 5 months? Because normally schools will say curriculum has to be covered and all those things, but you said 4 to 5 months we do the project. So how does that happen?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you. I think you got all the right key pulse of the project approach. 4 to 5 months, as I said, is in total. So what we don't do more than one project in a quarter kind of a thing. So if we break it up into 3 quarters of working, then we only have one project, because the teachers also need a lot of breathing time and space before they can do a project approach and after one. So, we have like any other good preschool, we have themes, we have a theme calendar, and then we decide, once in 3 months, we choose a theme which will be done as a project. So then it becomes manageable, because then you're just dealing with one project in a quarter. And in terms of the curriculum, as I said, a lot of pre-planning goes into what concepts and skills do children need to learn in that month, and how will it happen through the project approach. So there's a lot of intentional, obviously a lot of activities are planned keeping that in mind. But the ideas may come from children. But if I want to teach them about any concept in preschool, I think it's easy to integrate it with any topic that they are doing. So we try and marry the two in that way.
I think the audience want to know, what is the group size and how many kids would work in one project?
Yeah. So typically we have a group size of 20 to 25 kids in a class with 2 teachers. And so basically they all work together. The 20 to 25 kids would work together on a project. But a lot of what we do is, a lot of the work, as you see, also happens in small groups. So they work in small groups, and then they have a lot of discussions, decision making and sharing as a large group, because everything cannot happen in the large group. It becomes very chaotic. So there's a lot of division of work that they also do. And then there's a lot of bringing it together also that happens continuously.
Because we saw in the video that child was instructing, right, left, right, like they were putting the thing inside and out. So the instructions as to what should go in and how it should come out, the weaving project. Yes. I think that gives a lot of accountability to the children, and that it's their project and that they have to do something really nice. And you spoke a lot about researching, the researching part of it. Have you seen that, over the years, since your school is a K-12 school, when in the higher classes, has all this helped them? Obviously, it would have. We would like to hear from you. How has this helped them?
Oh, absolutely. I think what we see in higher classes is their ability to think, question, problem solve is amazing. So you look at, especially, sometimes when we have teachers coming from new teachers joining us, and they get shocked that, we've taught kids in other schools, whereas here they can really, we have to be so well prepared because they can ask any question at any time and that they make sense. So I think a lot of curiosity, inquisitiveness, a lot of ability to think, ask questions, think of solutions on their own. We see that in the higher years also. The other great thing that we've seen, because sometimes a proof of concept is an exam and is a test. So our kids give these asset tests and exams, which are nationwide, right? Education Initiatives conducts these asset tests, and
Yes.
our kids in primary years and higher years have scored, I think, in the top 5 to 10% nationally percentile. So, and I think our school was like one of the top 50 schools amongst thousands of schools who took the test. So that was the other proof of concept, on tests that matter, where there's higher order thinking and application. We also see that our children are able to do that well.
Oh, that's fantastic, and coming up, and also because many times, when all these activities happen, the parents typically want the children to study a few things, learn to read, write, ABCD 1, 2, 3, and do you have such things? And one of the questions that's come in also is, how do parents contribute?
Yeah. So one is, I think, what parents also clearly see is, even when they're learning math and language in later years, their concepts are very clear. So they are not rote learning. They're actually developing such conceptual clarity. And parents come and tell us that they are able to transfer it very meaningfully in new situations. See, hum kahin pe gaye the, to bacche ne connect kiya, was able to apply. So I think that's something that parents also value, that while we do this, it's not that it's not helping with math and language, it's actually helping them develop deeper understanding and skills. In terms of the parent contribution, I think, as I said, I think resources is one big thing. So, and again, they don't need to buy resources. We ask for used resources, unused resources. They contribute a lot of those. Secondly, we send out a circular to the parents before the project that we're doing this project. If any of you have any expertise that you want to share related to the topic, please come. So the first preference we give is to our parents. So we've had parents as visiting experts into the classroom, sometimes grandparents also, sometimes siblings also come in. So I think engaging them as experts from time to time, sometimes encouraging them to come as volunteers for field trips or other such places. And I think communication. We really keep our parents updated with what children are going to learn in the next week and what they have learned in the previous week. And I think the exhibition at the end, once the project ends, when the parents sees everything that the child has done and what they've said and done, I think that's the other way that I feel it's after, but at least they get ideas of, what is the potential of that child, their own child. And we feel that then you see the parents' approach with the child also changes after they see this.
That's really fantastic, because I looked at your Instagram, this thing, and I saw a lot of videos there, and like the way the parents are moving around the school and they're seeing this art immersion activities and all that. That's really, really fantastic activities that you do. Right from that blueprint making and making children get into that. It's not individual blueprint, you said. It is the group blueprint which has to be done. And how do you think about all this?
How do the children think about all
How
this?
did you come up with this is the way it has to be done? The project method is what you want to do.
Yeah. I think, as I said, I think we just kind of married 2-3 approaches. I think this was the blueprint and all is more inspired from the design thinking approach. So I think that cycle that I showed was a design thinking cycle. And I think a lot of it was just as a passionate group of educators, we kept on coming together and improvising. And we said, we are doing the project approach this way. Now, how can we bring in design thinking? How can we do this? And I think we kind of evolved our own methods. But the blueprint and all is kind of a step-by-step process that is inspired from the design thinking cycle and the process.
So from what you're saying, I can understand that the teachers are with you all the time. They are contributing. That there seems to be a very active involvement between the teachers. So how do you actually carry out some professional development program for them? I remember last week when I was speaking to you also, you were just out of PDP for your own teachers.
Yeah.
So how much do you do and what do you do in those programs?
Yeah.
You said good teachers, the slide said beautifully, good teachers is good education. So
yes.
Can you just tell us
about Sure, absolutely. And I would say that, even before a teacher joins, a lot of the PDP happens before that. So when we do the interviews, we are preparing them, we give them a clarity about the school's vision. We, really clearly lay out what is expected from a teacher here, because, people think preschool teaching is extremely easy. And I tell them in the interview, it's going to be very difficult. So I think right from the hiring stage, we start preparing their mindsets, preparing them mentally. And then we have an extremely strong induction training program. So before the school starts in June, throughout the summer, there are about 12 days of training that they undergo. And it's very intensive, full day trainings, about 50 to 60 hours in total, where we kind of doing two things. I think one is providing foundational ECCE knowledge and skills that is required before they enter the classroom. But the other, I think what at least I have gained when I have learned from mentors is get them excited about ECCE. If you can get them excited about ECCE, half the job is done. They have to see how special it is and what special impact can you have. And we try and do a good job of it now. And I think our teachers are also able to transmit that excitement to newer teachers. But after they join the system, I feel the good part about preschool classrooms and also ours is that we have two teachers. So we try and we try and always pair up a new teacher with an old teacher. So there's a lot of peer mentoring. She observes, she learns. Through the year, another 50 hours of workshops approximately. Here, I again want to say that the workshops need not be only technical. I feel we are helping a person to grow. So a lot of the workshops are more transformational. They are really reflecting on self-development, self-growth of the teacher as a person. And I think that really hooks them because it helps them personally, professionally, in all ways. And when you transform someone as a person, you don't need to do a lot of technical training because it shows in their work with the children. So some of those things, I think, helps.
That's fantastic that you're not looking at just the skill of the teacher, but the holistic development of the teacher is also what you're looking at. I think that's really very nice. We have a question from Sharika who's asking, I think, about special children. Are there anything special, like, in the form of an IEP for the children? Do you have, anything specific for special children? I mean, children with special education needs?
Yeah, so we don't formally have an IEP, but we do have a lot of processes where we are doing these weekly reflections with the teachers. We have a mentor who has a special ed background, so she constantly comes and observes classes, interacts with the teachers. For some kids, we have developed IEPs, not to say not doing that, but I feel what we're doing is because our program is really experiential, sensorial, a lot of the needs of children are met within the regular program. So, but a lot of tracking of children happens in terms of we have checklists and which children are not growing or growing more slowly in certain skill areas. So we have these conversations periodically, teachers document it. They create action plans for their own classes, which would have specific actions they would take for specific children. So yes, in that sense, we do a lot of parent interactions. Sometimes schools shy away from talking to the parents because they might feel कि parent को कैसा लगेगा, label कर रहा है, ये कर रहा है. But we feel it's in the child's best interest to bring our concerns to the parents' notice. So and that's where our principle and the senior most leaders take the lead. We meet the parents, not to tell them बच्चे में कोई problem है, but to actually tell them that, we really need to see what's happening, because there are certain ways in which the child may be not developing as other children, and we need to figure out what can we do together as a team. So many times these parents, obviously, many times kids go to external therapists, and also, so we invite the therapist to the school. We are behind the parents' lives, like, we want to meet the therapist so that we can create a plan together. So we kind of, in our own different ways, we try and work as a team for each child's growth.
That's so nice that not only the children in the class, but you take care of the needs of special children also. That's really fantastic. In our interaction over the last few months, I must say that I've also understood that you used the pandemic and the lockdown, and you completed a master's program at Harvard, in education. So anything that you've integrated from your learning from there into your school system?
Yeah, lots of things, and I think I'm still doing it. But to start by saying, when I joined the program, I thought I will get a lot of new knowledge. It will add to my technical knowledge of the field. And I realized that very little of that happened, maybe because I gravitated towards courses, because we had a lot of choice of electives. So I gravitated towards courses that really were more transformational. And I love that about Harvard, that even when they're preparing you as educational practitioners or leaders, the focus is on preparing you as a person, along with the technical knowledge that you're gaining. So I feel it just expanded my worldview as a person, as a leader, as an educator from all different angles. But if I have to talk about specific learnings, and I would say the first and the biggest one, which has also been my philosophy, and it got reinforced, is that children should be at the heart of all decision making in education. Whether you are a policymaker, whether you are a teacher, whether you are a leader or a management person, if we all keep children at the center and their well-being at the center, and we take decisions around that, then we will always, do right by them. And this is really reinforced by what I learned there. The other thing that I would also want to say is, we've been talking about these theories and research and all of that. So I went into Harvard thinking, I will learn some perfect theories about education. And that got really busted, because what we learned in the classroom was there's no right way. There's a lot of science and research which argues for two contradictory things. There will be enough academic research which will say behaviorism, information processing is the way to go. There'll be enough research which will say constructivism is the way to go, right? Similarly, competition, collaboration, what should be encouraged and not encouraged, rote, experiential. I have read academic articles on why rote and direct instruction is the way to go. And it kind of shook my beliefs. And I went to the professor once and I said, how are we supposed to operate in such ambiguity? And that the professor said, like, that's why you are an educationist, right? Evolve your own ideology. You don't need to follow a research article, because research ऐसी चीज है, आपको कोई भी चीज का argument मिलेगा and वो सही भी होता है. But you have to frame your own approach based on your own belief, your context, and common sense. So I think I have learned to hold contradictions better together. That in education especially, you cannot have black or white. You have to have grays. So now when a parent comes and asks me why you're doing certain things this way and not this way, I feel I'm a better listener. I'm able to accept it better because I see that perspective better. But also to frame then more holistic decisions for children is important.
Okay, from what you're saying, I know your journey would not have been so easy. You're a leader, but there would have been ups and downs, or there would have been certain challenges. If you can just quickly tell us about the challenges that you had to undergo and how did you overcome the challenges?
Sure. Yeah. There were a lot, but sticking to early childhood, I would say two big things, which maybe I've already talked about. The first, especially in the initial years, was changing parent mindsets about developmentally appropriate education. I had a father, I remember, and I was young and I was so passionate. He came and met me and he said, आपने मेरे बच्चे से car wash क्यों कराया? He was so angry that we made the children wash a car. and it was an activity in the preschool, right? But I realized that, everyone comes from very different backgrounds and beliefs. And as parents, we've had a very different form of education and upbringing. So I feel it was very difficult initially to convince parents कि ये काम करेगा, और इसके बाद भी आपके बच्चे जो भी बोर्ड में जाएंगे they will excel, प्राइमरी में जाएंगे they will excel, in fact they will do better. And initially, yes, it was difficult because we had no proof of concept. Now I have proof of concept because I have kids in higher classes and they are doing well. So what I think how we handled it is, I think you need to stay strong and you need to stick to your philosophy and beliefs. And you need to give that confidence to your team. So I've had teachers who, we had meetings with parents and teachers, and parents would have, accused teachers for something. And I took the teacher's side, and later the teacher cried and told me, I've never experienced this. Like, the management is taking my side over the parents' side. I said, it's not about taking sides. You were right. I mean, your intention was to help the child. So I think, like, standing by your beliefs, by your philosophy, but not being arrogant. I think sometimes we become too arrogant, and then that's where we lose the parents. So still listening to them, still understanding that their concerns are important and their questions are important. So it's like a really balancing act. And we've been doing a lot of parent education and parent communication. Because if you keep them updated on what children are doing, how and why, the why is very important. Then I think we've not had any issues. I think we've actually feel like they've been our biggest partners now in the journey. And the second is availability of trained teachers, and I think the simplest solution is you become a training provider yourself. But hoping that with the NEP, there will be a change. We will see early childhood becoming a more specialized profession, qualifications coming in. But yeah, I think training the teachers and creating the right ecosystem for early childhood teachers to flourish was challenging, but I think we've moved in the right direction.
It was so wonderful talking to you and trying to understand. Shweta Mehta, I think a question. We do look after individualized needs of the students by increased interaction with parents and experts. It's a comment, yes. That it's very important that the school interacts in a positive manner with the parents. I think that's really important. You've been doing it. When you look at whatever that you've spoken, it is like how we say picture perfect. It is a theory book perfect. Like you're integrating the theories, whatever that we read in the books into the application, the actual thing which happens. And I think that's the best part, being a learner, wanting to understand a lot of new things and trying to bring it into your school system. I think you're really working a lot for that, and bringing that learning also into the system. I think that is really, really very something which we all have to appreciate. We all have to learn. There have been positive comments, and I think your team is also answering on the YouTube chats, the questions and all that also. But it has been fantastic actually hearing you and talking to you, and the desire and the wish to visit Redbricks, I think is just is just so fantastic, and wanting us all to come and visit your school. The last question, in one sentence, if you have to answer this, at the end of the day, when you retire for the day, like when you go to sleep, what gives you the most satisfaction? In most of the days, what gives you satisfaction?
So actually, I'm a perfectionist. So most days I go to bed thinking what didn't go right. But I love the question. It's pushing me to think what goes right. I think this might sound cliche, but for me, it's really because as a school, you have 800 kids and you feel this immense sense of responsibility. So when I go to sleep, I feel like what gives me satisfaction is knowing that children in Redbricks are in the right hands. And by that, I mean the teachers. I think the kind of commitment, passion, and talent that these teachers bring, and to know that they will do right by the children, right? I think that's most important. So I feel like that's my conviction. Knowing that every child in every class at Redbricks is in good hands is what helps me go.
Yeah, thank you. It was so nice to talk to you. Such a young person. With a wonderful vision and with that josh to achieve whatever that you set out for, and you really fit into the word social entrepreneur, educational entrepreneur. that's fantastic what you're doing. And we wish from AECD, and I'm sure on behalf of all the participants, we wish you all the good luck. May you continue to do all the nice things that you're doing for the development of the children. And thank you for accepting our invitation. I am saying this again and again because it's so, all of us at AECD are wanting to come and visit you and also learn and see those, whatever is there in the theory is coming into practice, part of it. Thank you so much, Renita, for being here and sharing with us the exemplary practices that you are doing.
Thank you so much. My extreme gratitude to the AECD team, Purnima ji, Vidhya ji, you, Vrinda ji, the entire team. Thank you for trusting. I feel like these are the experts. 13 years back, I sat in AECD conferences taking notes, and now I'm showcasing the practices. I feel really humbled and proud. And I do want to end by saying that this is all teamwork. I feel like I was a spokesperson for everything that our Redbricks team and teachers and parents do day in and day out. So my gratitude to them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Renita, and thank you, audience, for being here. And we can see a lot of, appreciation coming in the chats and also in our phones when we can see that. That feels really good that we are able to organize a good session. So each and all of us learns from this. The spotlight webinars are for us to learn from each other, and that's what is happening. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And Purnima ma'am, do you want to say something?
Thank you so much, Renita. I felt I was in NID, and hearing the words design thinking, prototype, and using it in the early years, fantastic. And thank you so much on behalf of AECD. Thank you so much, Renita. Thank you all the participants for being here with us.
Renita, I think it was so enlightening to hear you, express all this so eloquently. And also I feel, it is in today's context to create that kind of a school and teachers with such dedication, because if that you mentioned Regio and aspects of it, the teachers in these kinds of programs have to contribute tremendously to build an integrated curriculum through these kinds of experiences. So hats off to you and your team for creating that kind of a fantastic atmosphere and being successful at that, because the way you projected the whole concept of the project method was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Vrinda ji. I think it's all teachers' hard work. Nothing is possible without that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Vrinda ma'am. That's so motivating when we hear our president say this, and we feel really nice. Special thanks to all the AECD members who've been working for a successful webinar, and Grishma, who's been such a strong administrative support for us. Thank you, Grishma, for all that you do, small and big things. And we hope that each and every one of you have a wonderful evening and a lovely weekend also. Wishing everybody the best of health also in this. Thank you so much for attending. And please stay tuned with us for the next webinars that is coming in. And please participate in the professional development programs as well as the spotlight webinars that we have planned. The more the merrier, and happy learning for each and every one of us. Thank you so much and good evening.